No, I was just saying.
Okay, so the true story is I went out to, I had a one-night turnaround out in California to give a speech, and I forgot my hairspray. And so my hair was coming down, and they're like, oh, wow, your hair looks great. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll just do hair myself for a while.
I know Morris not gonna ask that, I was just curious, because, people ask about those things. What, yeah. Can you talk to us about the Uber, this driver policy and how, and like there's some weird lawsuit where you guys can't even tell us how many drivers there are, or what?
We passed a, we think, comprehensive and appropriate ordinance, and that ordinance requires every Uber driver to also get permitted with the city. And as part of that, they have to go through a full fingerprint background check, because we didn't believe that Uber's Social Security background check was sufficient. The only wiggle room is that this was offered for Uber and for Lyft, or any other TNC that comes in, that for the first 30 days that they drive for you, you can give them a provisional, but you have to start the process. You have to come into the city and start the process. This guy's obviously been driving for Uber for a while, and apparently now we find out that there are lots and lots of Uber drivers who have not been permitted through the city. You cannot be an Uber driver without the permission of Uber. They control the software, they can finch you out. So it's clear to me, and I'm waiting for Uber's explanation, that they knew they had unpermitted drivers across city using, which means they're in direct violation, possibly deliberate violation of our ordinance. I don't want to go out and ticket drive. We're ticketing drivers. We've impounded cars. This is not about the drivers. This is about Uber not following an ordinance that they publicly agreed to.
So, are you trying to, are y'all gonna like file suit against Uber, or
Well,
what's
the most drastic thing we can do is say you can't operate at all here, and try to shut them down totally. But I'm leaving the discussions in the hands of the city attorney.
So that has not
Uber
been.
to see what's happening. Because the other thing that's in the middle of all this is really bad timing for Uber, because they were up at the state asking that the state law, we begged the state to pass a state law for payday lending, give minimum standards to prohibit predatory lending, and they thumb their nose, but they're falling all over themselves to pass a minimum state law for companies like Uber so that it can operate across the state. What we're concerned about is that they won't allow what we traditionally have been able to do, which is cities to pass stronger ordinances than the state. You can't be less than the state, but you can be more than the state. And because the state's engaged in this frenzy of discussion about preempting cities, and because apparently they've got this Uber legislation on the fast track, we were afraid that we'll turn around and Uber will be able to continue business as usual, and these kind of incidents happen. We're proud of our ordinance. We think we have a model ordinance, and our ordinance says that if you're a taxi, if you're one of these TNCs like Uber or Lyft, you still have to follow the same standards. We want a background check. We want a vehicle check. That is basic public safety.
And I guess your background check doesn't limit to 7 years, because I read the state bill, and it seems like other than sexual assault and killing someone, it's a 3-year threshold.
Okay.
Right?
I'm not sure what's happened. There's a moving target in Austin, but this rapist, alleged rapist, apparently got out of the federal pen in 2012, and he's on either parole or probation. How do they not pick that up? And we never had the opportunity to catch it because Uber never brought him to us. How many other drivers out there are like that?
And there's some sort of lawsuit where they sued you, or you got preventing you guys from providing trade secrets on the number of licensed drivers, or something like that?
They claim, because part of our ordinance says that in order to administer this, we get a 2% of the revenue to pay for the public safety aspects, to pay for the background checks and so forth. And they're either being greedy Or they say they're trying to protect trade secrets, they don't want anybody to know how many vehicles are out there. This is not a trade secret, and we're trying to make sure that we protect public safety. Is there anything I left off, or?
No, there's not a lawsuit that I'm aware of. There's
Come on
some,
up, come on over here.
there's some separate TPIA challenges, and they've gone to the Attorney General's office, so we're working through all that now.
So where you can't tell us how many permitted Uber drivers there are on the streets, right?
I don't have any technical.
We know how many permitted Uber drivers there are. Yes, because they have to go to the ARA department to get their permits, but apparently there are unpermitted Uber drivers out there that Uber's trying
Can
to
you
hide.
tell us how many permitted Uber drivers there are?
I'd have to check with ARA, but we certainly could get that information.
Yeah.
You know, just as clarification, if a person starts driving with Uber, say in Baton Rouge, and comes to Houston, you would expect them to get a permit, but they would already be in Uber's
If you
system,
are operating
right?
in Houston,
Right.
you need to have a Houston permit.
Mhm.
And Uber knows where their drivers are.
Right. Yeah.
What
Okay.
are the range of punitive actions that you see as being available, likely, possible on against the company itself?
That's the one where the city attorney is still exploring our options. And the reason that my chief of staff, who's intimately familiar with this process, is in Austin today, is to try to make sure the state doesn't do something that completely preempts us from protecting public safety.
We already had issued, the city of Houston had already issued some number of citations.
And we're
against
we're still citing, and we're gonna continue to cite, and we've impounded some cars. But it's not just aimed at Uber, we do it against taxis, we do it against limos operating illegally.
But my understanding was that some of those citations had already been issued against the company itself, that was part of the effort preceding the ordinance's passage, was not just to cite drivers. I mean, is that sufficient, or are those being handled any differently than the citations against drivers?
This is we think this is a fundamentally different situation. They obviously came into the market and they started operating prior to us having an ordinance. We asked them not to do it because we believed they were operating illegally, but we worked through that. We created an ordinance to allow them to operate legally. The question now is whether not the individual drivers, but whether Uber itself is operating in good faith.
As far as resolution of the citations, we are trying to negotiate a deal with both Uber and Lyft, and our stance with regard to the company is much tougher. We'll give a little latitude for the drivers, but we're going to come down harder and expect more from the company.
And can you give any detail at all on the range of punitive actions that could be taken against the company itself?
We're still exploring what we can do right now, and whatever's the most stringent and strictest is the way we can proceed.
You can't shut them down at this,
We could,
okay.
We're looking at our options, correct?
but we don't know if that's the appropriate step.
Do you have a timeline when you'll reach that decision? Like end of day today, or this week, or?
It'll be hopefully today. We'll sit down and be able to go through it and have a decision.
But then it's a matter of getting Uber to respond.
Have they called you back?
We hadn't made a phone call yet, but we know who the lawyers are.
And their lobby team,
Yeah. An unrelated issue.
they're all up in Austin right now. Yeah.
The passage of the Buffalo Speedway project, could you just remind us of what that new construction is going to do to help people get to Hobby?
It's an extension of Buffalo Speedway into sort of, it allows us to connect as sort of a landlocked, large tract of land that may or may not happen soon, but we hope it opens up for further development. But it also creates a better access for a large segment of that part of Houston.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, does the 4-10 vote on a relatively minor ordinance adjustment, is that the most lopsided result you've seen against an item you put forward in your memory?
Yeah, and you know, we didn't fight very hard for it. I mean, that just kind of came out of the blue. It wasn't a substantive item. What's interesting to me is that council members are going down the path of, well, we're Houston, we don't care about our regional partners. I think we need to be very careful about that. Houston is an entity that a lot of our regional partners love to hate. I mean, we are the big gorilla here, and I think we ought to go out of our way to be neighborly, but it wouldn't have required that the 10-county region be represented. It would have allowed a future mayor to do it. It's not a, so it wasn't a material change, but I'm more concerned with the conversation and the like venting about the folks who don't live in Houston taking advantage of Houston's resources. This is an interconnected regional economy, and we rise and we fall together, and I think we need to be very mindful of that.
Well, I mean, was it venting about that, or was it sort of political venting, pushback for pushback, say, your administration?
Oh, I didn't take it personally, and we voted, we went on. It was, I mean, clearly, I think the conversation on its face was what it was. Councilmember Kubash, for example, was very clear. This is an issue he discovered 2 weeks ago, and he's now announced that he's just going to ride it for a while.
So this isn't a lame duck thing?
I don't think so. You can ask them. I don't view it that way.
On the sidewalk items that were tagged, there's not a lot of information. I'm still waiting on information as our council members from Public Works apparently, but
as I said in the chamber, my agenda director fell on her sword on that one. We actually thought the backup was there, and apparently it wasn't. If the council members had just said it wasn't there, we would have tried to get it for them. But this is 2 years in the making. It's been vetted through committee several times. The goal is to make it easier to repair your sidewalk. The ordinance hadn't changed. It's still the property owner's responsibility to either install or repair an existing sidewalk, unless and except they fall under the Safe Sidewalks program, or we are going back through. And when we do complete streets renovation, we're going to include, we do include sidewalk work and to expand our network of sidewalks, but it's going to take us a long time to get back to most neighborhoods, and a lot of people don't want to wait. And this is designed to allow an easy process for a citizen to say, I want to repair my sidewalk, I want a contractor I can trust, I want to know what the fair price is. They don't have to hire our contractors, but we've vetted the contractors, we've established a price. And in fact, even if they don't use ours, we think it'll be helpful because they can go and say, I can go to the city and this is what I'll pay, and I don't have to pay permits. I don't have to have inspections, and so I don't need to be bonded. Can you beat that price? So it's a win-win-win for the consumer.
Now you're sort of saying it's like a standing bid they could compete against if they choose to do it themselves rather than through the program.
Correct. The first item was establishing that if you want to repair your sidewalk yourself and you're taking the sidewalk up and you're putting it right back down, and simply you're not widening it, you're not moving it, you're just putting it right back down, that we want you to do it as fast as possible and not have to worry about the permitting process, because we don't want more sidewalks. But the second item on the agenda was the master, it's not a job order contract, it's the wrong term of art, but it's like that. So you contact them if you want the work, and they've agreed to a price that they'll do it for.
So two questions on that. One, because of the permitting bonding that is required today, do you think people typically go through the city at all, or do they just go and do this and there's no, we don't catch them, they don't get red tagged, it just happens?
I think most people just sit around and complain about the city and how we don't come back and fix their sidewalks. But we're hoping that a lot of older neighborhoods will be fixing sidewalks. Montrose, for example, where you have a lot of actually trip and fall hazards because you have the sidewalks that come up over the roots, that it will, by creating a very clear, easy process, that more people will step up and do it.
And then the other part of that is because, as was discussed at committee, there's kind of a city overhead built into the cost, because the city has to do the work of, inspecting it after and working with the contractors. Does that not maybe make it more expensive and even less likely that people would use it because it's already privately funded, now they have to pay an overhead fee for the convenience?
No, we think we actually negotiated a really excellent price for this kind of work, and as I said, if nothing else, if the citizen wants to go through the process of finding a company, making sure they have, the appropriate paperwork and so forth, they can do that, and now they know what a fair price is. And because what's interesting, Public Works looked at it and said, this is what we think the price should be. And what the companies did was they bid multipliers. So at least one of those companies, maybe both of them, came in under what we said. So if you use that company, it's lower than what we think the established price should be. So it's a good vetting process anyway.
Is the overhead included in that bid price?
Yes.
Do you know?
Everything, that's an all-in price.
Okay.
Now, some of it we agreed to, we're eating it on our side, waiving the permits and bonding. And in fact, we may be waiving the inspections too, if you use our process where we vetted the companies and they know what they're supposed to do. I'd have to confirm that.
Okay.
Mayor, yes, can you talk about the city's